thank you for having me and trusting me with this. Back to what I was talking about, I think we were talking about what we did last sprint. So just to remind you, Guru showed us how to navigate to institution locations and showed us how to add, edit, and disable a user at institutions. Signori showed us how we can validate a student's social insurance number at the account level. And the UX team completed the application workflow. We showed you that. We talked about the design approach for how we were going to conduct user research with the institutions. Root walked us through his approach there, and some designs for how we're going to handle designation agreement. And then Schwanker walked us through our Sonar Cloud Codehouse solutions and talked about data smells, which for some reason I find hilarious. So, and then also Courtney left our team last sprint because she's just needed everywhere else, it seems. And so sad to have her go. But on that note, we are so fortunate. I'm going to move my screen around for a second to welcome a very senior service design specialist named Andrea, our little cat here. She comes to us from the Ministry of Justice and the Road Safety Team. Andrea, do you want to say hi to everybody?
Hi, good morning. Now, do you mean senior by my age or senior by my
experience?
Years of experience.
And not even years, just by
could be both. I guess you can't get a lot of years of experience without also being up there in age. So anyway, thanks, Michelle. It's great to be here. It's exciting to be in a new ministry and learning a whole new set of acronyms that don't make any sense to me. So yeah.
Yeah, so that's a good reminder to make sure that we all, you spell out the whole acronym so we all know what we're on the same page. Also, Roop, Lynn, and Courtney have done a really good job of ensuring that we are very user-centric and using service design, and Anne is going to just bring that extra rigor to our team. I'm really excited to get started with that. So I'm going to pass the mic over to you, Elise, to talk about what we were up to this last 2 weeks.
Right, great. Thanks, Michelle. Good morning, everybody. So we had a busy last couple of weeks. What we were focusing on, folks will recall that Sumanti had showed us the first 4 steps in the assessment. And so she's been continuing on working in the remaining steps for the assessment. She'll be showing that to us today. The UX UI team has been adjusting what we originally created for the student application. You'll recall we divided the application into different chunks. So personal information, financial information, that kind of stuff. So we've made some adjustments now to reflect the flow that we showed you last demo. We've also just been making sure that we've planned out how is a student going to navigate through their account and what are the different structures there. We've also been doing some user testing, which is the first time that we've really taken this out to end users. And so Lynn's going to walk us through some of the outcomes of that in some of the public institution users, their feedback. We had hoped to get to the permanent disability, and we have started talking about it. This is to verify PD, but we have not got anything to show you today on that as we weren't able to completely finish that work. We've also done some work on dashboards, which we could show you today, but I don't think we're going to have time, and also wanted to give some opportunity to review those a little bit more. Last time we also showed you, I'm going to call it a 2-dimensional, kind of a flat view of the programs. This is programs and offerings. We're going to show you today them actually developed. They exist in the system now, so show you that. It'll be the real deal. We're going to be able to show how you can add, view, and edit a program, and also the offerings. And just a reminder that we are, this is where we're experiencing some significant change and are looking at essentially breaking apart what we currently call a program and taking it into 2 pieces, the program and then the offering, or might often be referred to as the study period. So that's something that we're really looking forward to showing you today. So there's just a couple of other things I wanted to go over from a context, just to make sure that everybody can track where we're at. So just wanted to remind folks that in our current system, so in Microsoft Dynamics, for institution users, there are 3 profiles, access profiles, that institution users can have. Our plan is to build on that and simply add 1 more profile. And just a reminder that all institutions will have an account, and then they may have 1 or more locations. And so we've added an additional access profile called a location manager, which is essentially that admin profile, but just for 1 location only. And that admin profile is the highest level of access, and it's also what allows the individual to manage the users for that institution account or that location. So also wanted to, and I'm trying to just give you some background so that when we go into the demo, some of the things will make sense a little bit more. But folks may recall when we talked about our strategic opportunities and we identified the need to make changes to program, one of the key issues was that we knew that right now when we're using an Appendix 3, what ends up happening, unfortunately, is that program bypasses all of the validations. So the institutions and program team don't get a chance to check to make sure that program is eligible. And so we are looking at developing a new program information request process, which we're showing you, to replace the Appendix 3 process. And our goal is to make sure that all programs and offerings will go through a process to ensure that they're eligible. So we've started to plan that out. So we're looking forward to showing you some initial thinking about that today. Also wanted to tell you that Lynn's going to share with us about what the public institution users had to say about our program and offerings. And we have also started to share some information with the private career training, as well as some of our out of province institution users. And so we're pleased to have some volunteers to do some research in the future for that as well. Yeah, it's good. It's people are definitely wanting to participate, which is great. I think we'll have more volunteers than we need, which is a good problem to have. So the other thing that we're looking forward to showing you today, and I want to spoiler alert flag that next Wednesday we'll spend some more time talking about it, is the application. You'll recall last time Courtney walked us through the application, the workflow. What we're actually going to show you today is that application. We've got the questions. There's different pieces in there. It's still that 2-dimensional kind of a thing. It's not built yet fully, but we are going to show you some of those pieces. And I just wanted to flag for you that you're going to start to see some of the work coming out of Appeals mini project. We talked about the idea of incorporating some different questions in the applications so that students didn't need to complete an appeal request form. They could actually provide their information up front. So you're going to see some of that this morning as well. So really looking forward to your feedback. And then just as always, just remember that, yep, there's going to be some of the language that we're using, some of the help tests, some of the warnings, for example. We definitely still need to continue to do some work on that. So it's definitely not perfect. Also just wanted to remind folks that what we're trying to do here as much as possible is build what I would call the main road, or people may refer to as the happy path. And so that main road, and then sometimes we have to go off that road. Oh, I like this metaphor. Sometimes we can go off-roading. Okay. But anyway, sometimes you have to kind of go off-road. And then our goal is to, as much as possible, get people back onto that main road. So we're not going to build a whole bunch of other pathways. We want to reuse our pathways and link people back onto that main road as much as possible. So you're going to see some of that today as well. So I'll pass it back to you, Michelle, and let's get down to the good stuff.
Yeah. So one of those off-roading adventures, and the echoing, Roop, is that you making the echo? He always does. Was program information request a little bit to get them back on that main road. But before we get to that, I'm going to have Roop tell the story about some of the student application updates. Initially, we were kind of doing it from the lens of personas. So Matt coming through, what were the questions we wanted to ask Matt? And then we were going to kind of layer it that way. And then we decided, wait a second, let's just see what it all looks like up front. And then we'll do that double check with personas after, just to make sure we caught all the nuances. So Roop, I'm going to pass it to you to share your screen.
I'm muted.
You're on. Yeah,
muted.
you were muted. Yeah, there you are.
All right, so let's begin with application. Now, we did do a first cut at application previously, but based on the kind of new layout of information that we want to receive, we changed up a little bit. I would say a lot of it. We called it an adjustment based on that, but it was like kind of a rework, to be quite honest with everyone. And what this really means is that we can tailor this a bit more and try to make it more individualized to each user as they come through. So I'm going to walk you through the sections. As Elise mentioned, we're going to go deeper in this next Wednesday, I think was what you said, or another day to go really deep dive into all the different questions and everything. But today I just want to walk you through the sections and what they mean for our students or applicants coming through. So this is our welcome screen again. They're going to come in here and we're going to give them a bit of information about what they'll need to get started. And then they're going to kick right into the selection of their program. I mentioned, or it was mentioned that we're talking about program information requests, or formerly known as Appendix 3s, and this kind of relates to that. So keep this one in mind. So when you're selecting your program, the happy path, as we mentioned, is to select your school and then select your program and then select an offering of that program. If there's a few kind of forks in the road right at this beginning stage, and that is if your school isn't listed, we're going to let you know that if your school isn't listed, it looks like they might not be designated. Therefore, they need to do some work. So kicking them right into that message right away. This is kind of the real only reason we'd stop them to say your school's not here. Sorry. Now, if you find your school but your program isn't listed, we're going to ask you for some information. This is what makes up that program information request. It's the name of the program, a quick description, the best of their ability, whatever they can enter, and a start and end date to allow the institution to figure out what intake or offering they're gonna use for this. And then same thing goes if the program's there, but the offering isn't there, they're gonna have the ability to enter some information about that. And then this kind of kicks into what the institution will see and how they can kind of infer where the student's supposed to be. Again, this will be a bit more apparent shortly. Next is we ask a bit of the personal information. This top section comes in during onboarding. So as they enter the application, set up their account, we ask them a few questions, things like their email address and their home address and phone number, just to have that on file. And then here, they're really just confirming that this is correct. So this is kind of, it unloads a little bit of that stuff they have to do within the applications. And eventually, this entire page they can save as well to their profile. So step one is take this information. Step two is kind of all the information on this page. Another thing we've included is if, say for in this case, the question about citizenship status, if you are a protected person or a permanent resident, we're going to allow you to upload proof of that. And this, you'll see this throughout the application, and that's the ability to upload a file. Again, if there are a few things that come up where usually it would just kind of be a, oops, you need to do this separate form or call in or all of that kind of stuff. Or if you're a resident of BC, if you select no, you might fall into one of these categories. So allow them to select those edge cases right during the form. And again, if you are a resident, you don't see this stuff, so it doesn't feel as daunting to you. It's only daunting if you're going down that really, really unhappy path, to be quite honest. So down here, you select those again. we've added this notion of being able to explain through text, as well as uploading supporting documents if needed. And again, just going through all of this information. And as I mentioned, the stuff on this page, you can save to your profile for future use. It means that you can do other types of applications as they come online in our system quicker and easier. Down here in this share information, we are creating this thing called a trusted contact. What this means is if you've got a parent or a guardian who wants to constantly be a part of your application process, you can give them access to your application. And then you can also add this trusted contact to give access to your StudentAid BC account, either until the end of this particular study period of this application, or a specific date, or just until you remove them. This kind of it comes up quite a bit, and we've heard it's the fact that, hey, I need to help my I don't know, daughter, son, whatever, and I want to be able to do this easily. So you can add multiple trusted contacts in future. And then finally down here, it's that save personal information. So you can save this entire thing into your profile for future use. Again, making things and life easier in the future. The next section that comes up is your family information. This is kind of the beginning of how we decide whether you're an independent or a dependent student. And based on what you answer here, it kind of kicks into the next screen. So here, if I did select I was married or common law, I can select the date that we began to live in a marriage-like relationship, as it's stated. And so doing that right in line as it comes up makes the most sense. Also, if you're adding dependents, we enter some information about each dependent, the ability to add multiple. Again, if you do have, say, for example, if you claim that dependent on your 2021 income tax return due to a disability, if you selected yes, you can upload supporting documents. So whenever there is a need for a supporting document, we allow them to do that in line. Yeah, and then just going down again, same thing for this question about a dependent who you don't have sole custody of, but financially support. Again, supporting documentation when it's needed. So based on what you answered here, based on your date of graduation, things like that, we will figure out whether or not you are a dependent or an independent. If you're married, we know that you have a partner, all these kinds of things. So next, if you selected, yes, I'm married, we're going to need to know some information about that partner. Or you're in some sort of partner relationship. Now, when you're in this screen, if you select, yes, they do have a valid SIN number, this is a process that's upcoming. And it's how do we allow for a partner to come in and enter their own information? That's a process kind of forthcoming. So something would email to them. They would have to visit something. Do they need to create an account? Do they need to just have a special access code? Those are all things being worked out in the background. But if they selected no, it means that we need to ask the applicant these questions. And so what we've done is we worded these questions to allow for that applicant to answer these questions on their behalf. So it's kind of asking them in the vein of, hey, is your partner a full-time? Is your partner going to be employed full-time or part-time during a study period? These are questions you know and you can ask for now. And so all of these types of questions are shown here. You would go through that section for your partner. Now, if you were a dependent student, we do the same thing to learn more about your parents. So we ask things about, are your parents legal residents of BC? If yes, great. We're going to do that same option where we email them, get them to come in and do all that stuff. And yeah, we also ask those kind of weird questions about, you know, if your parents have passed away or you have no legal guardian, if you're estranged, we answer those, ask those questions here, and you can answer those with supporting documentation as needed below. The financial section, it's going to differ based on whether you're an independent or dependent student. And so things like your income tax, exemptions. If you're asking for, I think there we've reworded. I think it was it wasn't an exemption. What was it called before, team? I can't remember.
Audit questions, but we've renamed them to, because audit happens after
right
application, and so in the application we're calling them exemptions.
Right. So we just changed the wording because this is happening before rather than after.
And in some cases, the business has called them appeals, but they're not really appeals.
Yeah, we're not appealing anything yet because you haven't submitted it, right? So it's
That's
like
what I meant to say, appeal.
yeah, sorry, yeah. So if you do have an appeal type thing in the old world, we're calling it an exemption because it hasn't happened yet. You're not appealing anything yet. So it's more a matter of giving us information to get you on the right path during the application. So it means that you can speed through that process on the back end as we can. And then down here, you can notice that this section here is for both, either if you're an independent or dependent student. And then there's also things like living situation that are if you're a dependent student, these questions relate to you there. And then things like transportation costs, those relate to an independent or dependent student. So based on who you are, you're going to see the right amount of stuff and you're going to see the correct things that you need to answer as a student in that situation. All right, finally, you're going to confirm your submission and just make sure everything you've entered, it'll be displayed in these boxes here. You declare that, yes, you consent to do all this stuff and submit this to us. And then you would just go ahead and hit next and you're done. So your thing has been submitted. That's an application. Hopefully that was not too quick, but yeah, that's the application.
Lots of hands clapping there. It's pretty exciting. So, and we thought next Wednesday we would maybe take the time and maybe go through it a little bit more because you're just seeing it at 50,000 feet. So we can take a look. Just a reminder that it's not built yet. This is still early days. So, and of course we can make some adjustments as we need to, but this is a huge piece of work that a lot of people have contributed to. So just want to acknowledge that. Vivian is the feature owner and some amazing she did in the beginning. Robin taking over some of that. And of course the UX, UI and development team. So pretty exciting to see this.
Did you want me to jump right into the program information request?
Yeah, maybe a quick gloss of that one too.
Yeah, this one a little bit deep. Sorry, apologize for that. Okay, so next I wanted to quickly jump into the program information request. So Appendix 3 is in the old world. How does that relate to what we just saw? If the student wasn't able to find their program on this beautiful list that we're going to be populating, then they enter that information here. What that does is on the institution side, when they're looking at it, they're going to see that, okay, well, they couldn't find that program on their list, so therefore we need to complete this request. What does that look like on their end? So when they see these applications come through, they see it in this way. So they're going to see all their student applications showing up, and they'll notice that, okay, well, Matt Damon's unconfirmed business administration program has come through. There's an info request there. Let's take a look at it. So here it says that the applicant has indicated that, hey, what they're looking for isn't here. You, as an institution, need to go through and complete an information request. You can have two options to do that. You can click here or up here on the application action section. Now you're in this mode of entering information for Matt Damon. Okay, so down here, if the student was able to find the program, but they're looking for an offering, the offering or the program will auto complete like this. If you think that they missed it, you can select from a program that already exists. And if you don't have that program and you know it's not in our system, we're going to point them to the program creation screens that Lynn had shown you guys, because that's a separate process. Down here, you would select your offering. And if you need to create a new offering specific to that student, you also have that option. So if you click that, you'll see that you can go and enter all this information. This mimics and mirrors exactly what's in the program creation and offering creation screens that Lynn had shown you. And you can create it for this particular student, or down here, there's an option here to allow other students to select this from that list. So maybe there's a whole intake of people that are probably going to be like this. You can select that option here. Then you would just go ahead and complete that information request. Oops. And it would kind of go through to this screen, which is the now it's been completed screen. And they're just going to give you a toast message letting you know that this has been submitted. Yeah, and that's how program information requests come through. It's just filling in the blanks that were left out by the student.
Yeah, so this was one of our off-roads that we had to kind of think through. Lots to digest there, and maybe next Wednesday, if you have time to go through that with a deep dive as well with the application. That might be helpful for people to wrap their heads around. For sure, that was a mind bender for us on the team. Okay, Lynn, are you here? Are you willing to share some of the findings from our first user research with institutions?
Yes, I'm so excited to bring this to you guys today. So today I'll be kind of presenting the research summary that we did in our usability lab. So you do have a link here to the mural that I'll show you if you want to have a look at it afterwards as well. But let's get into it. So you might have remembered last time, Roop had showed us the user research plan, and out of that plan, it kind of noted down what we wanted to ask, who, when, and the tools we're going to use. That kicked off a lot of other processes, such as working with the privacy team and to get it through the PIA checklist, and also the logistical details of inviting the participants to the labs, et cetera there. So I just want to give a shout out to Irina and also David Malcolm and Adrian for helping out with that, with those details there. So since then, we have our user research plan. For this sprint, we launched into our usability lab. So let me just zoom in for you guys there. So we call this usability lab, but sometimes we do call it user testing. So just want to make that clear for you guys as well. And a usability lab is essentially a time to test out new designs with real users. This really helps us uncover problems in the design, also discover new opportunities to improve the design, and also a way to learn about our users, the behaviors and their preferences as well, so that we can continue to add improvements or enhancements to the design as well. So for this usability lab, we tested out the education programs with BC public institutions. These were one-on-one sessions with about 7 participants in each of the one-on-one sessions. Again, they were with BC Publics. And like Elise had mentioned, in the future, we're going to have additional labs with the privates and out of province at a later date as well. So this one was just for the BC Publics to start. And basically what, I want to just run you through what a lab actually kind of looks like. It sometimes looks like this, sometimes not, because we're in a pandemic, we're doing everything remote as well. So usually you have a participant and then the facilitator and also a data logger or an observer. It kind of looks like this. But what we do in those sessions is that we run through a task sheet just to ask them to kind of run through, like, how would you create a program? Can you show me how you do this? Or where would you go to do this? So these are task-based questions that we ask in there. And if we find that we're getting some deep insights, we'll kind of go deeper with the participant to understand why that is and kind of note down the improvements that we'd like to make in the future. So this session is really great in terms of asking the participants to talk out loud. Normally when you're browsing the internet, you're kind of in your head, right? But for this session, we're asking the participants to talk out loud. So such as, all right, I'm going to click on this button. Oh, I don't think I can see the button, but I see this text here. So that's kind of how the sessions start to look like. So some of the questions we do ask in the session as well. And that's just kind of just give you guys a quick sense of that. We have some warm-up questions we ask. So can you tell us about your role? What does your day-to-day look like? This really gives us insight into their day-to-day and their experience when they're gonna be using our system as well. So that's really good contextual insight for us. And then again, those task-based questions: where would you go to create a new program? Where would you go to edit your program? Is there anything that you feel is missing? How did you feel about that? And can you elaborate on that? So you'll notice we won't ask questions like, oh, do you like that? We may ask that at the end, but we try to ask questions where we're uncovering themes, so that we can kind of continue the improvements there. So that's kind of usability labs in a nutshell there. Let's get right into the summary, because that's kind of the juicy part of these usability labs itself. So I'll talk about the overall findings in general, and then I'll kind of talk about our key enhancement lists that we'd like to kind of look at in the future as well. So for the overall findings, overall the education program's design, the participants felt it was easy. We had asked them at the end of the session, how easy or hard was that experience for you? Most of them rated it to easy to very easy. However, there were some lower scores there, but the ones who rated it lower were just mostly around confusing wording or lack of descriptions in certain areas where there's maybe a bit more policy consideration to add more explanatory text for them. So we've added that in our key enhancements, which I will show you in a bit as well. But overall, the participants felt like it was quite intuitive. I think that's not really surprising because if you look at SFAS and to what we're doing today, it's quite drastic, quite different. So I think folks will be happy with the intuitive design there. The saturation point, as I had mentioned in previous research that we have done, a saturation point, it just means that we're no longer finding insights anymore, but it's always good to just continue talking to our real users so that we can get a better sense of their journey in general. So for this test, our saturation point was at participant 5 out of 7, where we no longer found common insights. With that being said, it's always great to kind of have the chance to talk to real users whenever we can, just so that next time when we're going to design something, we have a bit more background into their experience in general as well. So we found that all the participants understood the navigation that we created. So it was intuitive to them what was underneath each navigation item. The question we had asked them in this sense is, can you explain, when we showed them kind of the first screen, we had asked them, can you explain what you think is under each nav item? And all participants thought it was quite intuitive with the dashboard navigation and the locations itself and how it was structured there. So that was positive. And then when we also tested the workflow. So when I talk about the workflow, it's the workflow of splitting up the program information and offerings. That made sense to participants. I threw in a few quotes from the participants that have said they liked it. A new program doesn't get added frequently. However, I am forever adding in new intakes. When they say new intakes, they mean offerings as well. So we also just asked a few more questions. How did you feel about the workflow being decoupled? Participants have said it made sense since adding programs happens so infrequently, and I would be in this module adding the offerings more. So we got an overwhelming, well, all the participants said that this workflow made sense as well. So that was a positive validation there. But of course, we'd like to continue on doing usability labs with the privates and also out of province as well. So more to come on that. But so far, so good. So some of the key enhancements from UX in general, I'll just kind of zoom in a little bit closer for you. So, so the word offerings, that one became kind of the thematic one out of all the sessions. Now the word offerings, some of them, you know, it resonated with some and others not. I would say that more than not, institutions, participants that told us they use words like intakes, study periods, or even year 1, year 2, year 3. And that's how they talk to their students, and that's what they put in their own documentation. So this one's something for us to kind of mull on and a little bit more on that and kind of look at additional solutions and how we can provide that better experience for the institutions as well. But for the students, I think this is an opportunity area where we can test out what the naming makes sense for our students. So for now, we're just putting it out there. Let's choose a word that resonates with students, how they talk. And I think that's an opportunity area for future usability labs when we go to students, just to ask them, how do you feel about these words, basically? Intakes, offerings, like which one makes more sense in terms of the mental model? Which one are you gravitating towards first? So that's an opportunity area for us in the future there. Institution users like the copy and offering functionality, which is not that surprising there. However, we'd still like to make some improvements on that end. It was a bit hidden. Some folks didn't find it or didn't kind of see it. So we want to just ensure that the feature is kind of clearly explained. Also, we were thinking maybe we should allow duplication of specific offerings as well as a future enhancement, but some mulling over that for us as well, just to ensure that when we're learning about the institution experience, they're going to be entering in a lot of data, maybe for the first go around. And I think a feature like that could help alleviate some concerns with, having to enter a lot of information in the system at once, kind of thing. So something for us to look at. There were overall anxieties for adding their programs into the new system. A lot of them had asked for bulk uploading. It's not surprising to why, but what we've said is that we do need to start somewhere. We need to start with understanding that these are the current fields first that we'd like to use before we kind of go into the bulk uploading design. But I think the anxieties will start to kind of come down once we begin to design the bulk upload. I think folks will begin to kind of see that world. But first, we do need to start somewhere. We need to start manual, and then we can look at improving that experience. Participants had trouble finding the submit button. So that is more of a UI change for us. We just want to ensure the actions reflect the end result. So currently we're using the word save. Save doesn't really sound like a firm submission. So we're looking at changing some call to action language in the buttons itself. So submitting a program as an example, just to be clearer and just to give more confidence to the participants or the users in general. Participants didn't understand what was being asked for in the program field. So you have your program information and then you have your offerings. On the program information screens, we had a lot of questions around what each field was and what the policy was. They didn't understand some of the language. So we think that as a feature enhancement, we can explain the policy around each field so that there's no anxieties around what they're kind of putting in as well. So. And also to ensure there's a way to get help easily, maybe with a tooltip in the future so that the page doesn't look so text heavy afterwards, that we're done with explaining each policy field. We can look at kind of tooltips or other features that we have. And then participants didn't see the add additional offerings button. That is something for us to do to make on a UI change. We just want to make this workflow clear and describe the benefits. So maybe putting that a bit more upwards so that it's easier in the view, or maybe the larger button in that sense. So next one, participants didn't feel confident when clicking the button. Again, that's kind of familiar or similar to the other theme that we saw. So the outcome, we think that the outcome of each action needs to be clearer in the interface. So this action will result in X, Y, and Z, just so they know when they're clicking submit, this is what's going to happen for them. And then as a related theme, participants weren't sure weren't clear on what was going live when submitting information to students. So as they're putting in the offerings information, it wasn't clear to them that was going to the students. And so again, this is just a language and a content thing. We just need to be explain that the outcome of submitting this will result in displaying it to students as well, right? So just making sure that they have all the information correctly there. And then as another related theme, participants didn't know what was displayed to students. So again, having that explanatory text in there to say this will happen once you say submit. And then we are also thinking as a future enhancement, what's kind of common and the best practice out there is to show a preview of what the programs and offerings will be displayed on the student on the SABC application there. So just displaying, so after the institution puts in their offering information, we can show a preview of what it looks like to the student, just to give them a bit more confidence. Because if they are inputting in many program information, and there's bound to be some input errors there, and if there is an error in there, that could be a huge impact to the student, and that could result into a whole redo of Appendix 3s or program information requests. So we want to prevent that from happening. So we think we can do that in multiple ways of text, and also perhaps having a new feature, which is just showing previews of how the programs and offerings will be displayed before they submit it and it goes to students. So those were really the main key enhancement items from the UX side. Overall, again, the participants felt the experience was intuitive. However, we do have some changes that we want to kind of still make to make sure that we take care of all those kind of anxieties or concerns as they're going through that. So with that being said, that is really the end of the summary. You do have this for additional insight. I did make some additional notes here, good to knows around some other things that came up. They weren't really thematic, but I thought they were interesting for the entire team. Maybe the program area would like to know. Just some additional notes from folks that we just added, didn't want it to get lost kind of thing. So you have the mirror board, so you can always go to that. But if you have any questions for us, love to answer them. Yeah. So
Yeah. Thanks, Lynn.
yeah, no worries.
Sorry, I'm going to cut you off there. And we're going to pause on student navigation and institution location dashboard and save it if we have time for the end, because I know the devs have a lot to show, if that's okay.
Absolutely.
Okay, great. Okay, Schwenker, you had some quick security and Equifax updates that are good to hear.
Yes. So I won't go through a full demo of like the security updates thing. I'll just describe to you sort of what's happening. So if you recall last product review, I talked about Sonar Cloud. So we also enabled around that same time, basically GitHub, which is basically where our code is stored, has some features that basically scan all your code to see if you don't have updates or you're missing updates for different packages and libraries and all sorts of different things. And what that does is that keeps us more honest about getting updates faster and getting them into our pipeline to get into production faster. And so maybe next time, or if you have time at the end of this, I can go through what that actually looks like. But just one more layer of automatically updating and getting notified of updates to get implemented in quicker. Equifax, likely more things coming out shortly for this, but going forward with the new system, we do not need to integrate with Equifax anymore due to some changes with CSLP and some other folks.
Schwenker, can you just confirm what Equifax does for us?
Oh, yes. Sorry. Equifax is who we do our credit screening with for, if you recall, independent students over 22 have to go through credit check screening process. That is not something we have to do anymore, which is a nice load off our plate, even though we did some work already for it. That's fantastic news on all fronts.
It's going to save us money too, from what I understand. Is that right?
Correct.
Yeah, we pay for that.
They save us money, time, complexities, all sorts of awesomeness all around.
Nice. So we're going to take that money and put it towards ice cream parties.
That sounds good to me.
That's a rumor.
Okay. Awesome. Okay. Andrew Signori. So I just have to say, a lot of shoveling and heavy lifting was done on behalf of the UX team and a lot of key business folks around education programs. And because of all of that hard work, we were able to create a very crisp couple sets of user stories for the devs, of which they cranked them out in like a week's time and got them all done for us to see actually in the system. So I'm just very impressed. I'm also simultaneously really nervous that we have to just continually stay ahead of the devs to feed them all this good requirements. So anyways, I'll let Signori show us all the awesome work they did on education programs in the actual system.
Thanks, Michelle. Yes, we have a lot of work. Hello, everyone. So what I'm going to demo is like what we have in the system right now to create a program and add some offerings. So here we have an institution, we have 2 locations, and we have the programs. Okay, so the programs could be added at location level, but they are going to be available for every location. So when I add the program here, it's going to be available also for the other locations. I'm going to talk a little bit more about these ones, but depending on how you create the new program and the options selected there, it's going to be like approved or in pending status. Pending status means that there will be some ministry intervention to make that approved. So let's talk first about the create new program. It's a screen. You're going to provide some data. Program name, program description, credential type is Which one, Alice?
Let's go for degree.
Degree.
And I
CIP.
think I looked it up and I think let's go with 12.34.
There is some validation happening here for the CIP code, so it must be like 2 numbers dot 1 to 4 numbers, something like that. So it's here.
Yeah.
National occupation.
I don't know, and that's an optional field, so that's okay.
Fine. SABC code. Do you
And I
understand?
don't know that one either. So again, optional field going forward.
Right.
So
The body.
yeah, so this depends on the institution. So let's just say private active legislature and think that it's Trinity Western or something.
Right. So here we have options to select on-site and online. When selecting online, we have more options coming. So could it be both? Just for the sake
Sure.
of it?
Yeah, let's make it both.
Okay, next question. Offer 100% on-site also?
No.
No. If no, we have more questions coming. So student number credits is the same period student.
Yes.
Okay. Program load, we have
And
dropped.
it's based, yeah.
Yeah, if you go for hours, we have more. Would you like hours or credit?
Let's make it credit based for now.
Okay, all good. Years to complete.
4 years to less than 5.
Nice. What are the admission requirements for this program?
The first one, they all have to have.
Right. So if you will go for the second one, more things coming. English as a second language. Here,
Yeah.
here we have the first error, Alice. We can make that an error to show the pending. And we can
if we were to choose that, the program would not be automatically approved.
Exactly, that's
Okay.
the demo. So when we have some kind of error here, the user can still submit, but that's gonna impact in the status, approved or pending. So we can do that like it.
Sure.
Not an error for now. And the
Yeah,
last
and I don't think this one's offered jointly, but if it was, can you show us what it would happen? If it was offered jointly.
Oh, yes, sure. Yes. We have one more question then. Yeah.
And of course, the policy is that it must be. Okay.
Right. So there is no errors. There are no errors at all here. We are adding an engineering course. When you submit it, it's going to be available here as approved because there is no error that demands the minister approval. And the other college is going to see that also. What's going to differ? It's going to be the offerings added. So if I come to the test location 1 and go to the view part, it's going to display a header with some information. It says the status approved, and I have the option to edit the program or add offerings. If I edit the offering, it's going to load everything again, and I can make something to cause the error. If I do that and submit again, it's now pending because it needs a minister approval that is to be developed and defined. So if there is some error pending, if it's everything good, approve it. While viewing it, we can start adding offerings. That's the other screen. We have the information. I can try to make that like as short as possible, just to show the two scenarios. So no program dates is one option that we can continue adding more. We can add it here, and we can now decide, oh, sorry, my bad. We need some dates, and the dates need to be like bigger, start date and end date. And we can updated, and I can continue to adding more offerings. So I added one offering to the engineering program in one location. So here, if I see the total of offerings for engineering, I have one here. If I navigate to the other, I don't have that because the offering belongs to the other location. So the programs are added at institution level, but the location could go there and add it. And the offerings are going to be always at location level only. And that completes the cycle. Do you want to show something else, Alice?
No, I think that's probably enough for today. I think people are kind of going at this point. So yeah, it's pretty exciting though. And just wanted to flag for folks. So this is now built, whereas last time we showed you the flat. So one of the things that we'll be looking forward to obviously is testing in the future using this. And so we'll get more feedback. And of course, once we make sure it's all done, then we can start to develop some training material to support this change.
Yep,
Be
100%.
exciting.
That's Michelle. Thank you.
Thank you, Signori. We're going to have Anne show us some user access types and how they've created some guardrails. Is that the right word?
Yeah,
for users not to access places they aren't welcome.
yeah, I will share the screen. Hope you guys can see my screen.
Yes, we can see it.
Yeah. Like here we have introduced view stores in the front end, as well as I will be showing user access type authorization to all our pages. So at first, I have logged in as Zoe, institution admin of an institution app. And since Zoe is an admin, she can like view all the locations under her institution, as well as she also has access to manage like every institution and all those manage institution features. She has access to all those features. So now in my another browser, I'm logging as this college app SIMS 2 user. So this user has access only to location 1 and location 2, and he is a user of location 1, and location 2, he is a location manager. So in my another browser, I'm already logged in as that user. So since he is not an admin, he's a user and location manager, he won't be having the option to manage location in the header over here. And he will be only having access to location 1 and 2. And location 1, he is a user, so he will be having only these features, programs and applications. And location 2, he is a location manager, so he will be also having this user feature. Now, okay, so we have also introduced like view stores. So earlier, like when the dashboard is loaded, this sidebar, the location which is populating in this sidebar was like each and every time there was an API call to the server, and with that API calls value, we were populating all those values. So as of now, we have introduced view stores. So now this data over here in the sidebar, and for the internal purpose, we are using view stores. So each and every time when this page is loading, these data are loading from the view stores. And now I will show, like we have also introduced guard for each and every URL in our application. So only a user of that of a particular user type is allowed to access a user URL. For example, I'm going back to this admin user. So this admin user has now access to this this URL, like institution location manager. So now I'm showing like what happens when the other user, access this particular URL. He will be redirected to a forbidden page. Same way, this user is only having access to location 1 and location 2. So location 1's ID is 6 and location 2 ID is 8. So what happens if the user try to change the ID from the URL? And so since he doesn't have access to that particular page, again, he will be redirecting to this forbidden page. Now I will show like different admins of different institution. Admins of an institution can only access the location under the institution. So this is an admin. She has access to these many locations. In my another browser, I am logging as a different admin of a different institution. College. So this is an admin user of College. She has like 2 users and 3 locations. These are the locations. So this test location ID is 16. So I'm going back to the other admin of the institution E. And what happens when this admin at that location. He will be redirecting to the forbidden page. So same way we have introduced user type access to each and every URL in our application. Only the user type of that particular only users that have added in the guard can access a URL. Yeah.
Awesome. So we can't have users sneaking in the back doors of other institutions or have access to pages within their own account that they haven't been invited to. Awesome work. Thank you very much, Anne. Is there anything else you wanted to show? Okay. Awesome. So for our final dev, today we have Sumati, who's going to show us some more work on the determine assessed need calculation workflows that she's been drafting and mapping.
Yeah. Hey, hello everyone. And last time we started with this assessment sheet, and this goes in par with the application program that is being like changed up, right? Like that also it goes in par along with the development. So having said that, the last in sprint we covered the first 4 formulas, that is a total cost calculation. And this time we have like completed the complete calculation. The complete calculation from the Excel has been transformed into like a workable automated workflow. So just a small recap. So typically you will see like basically 3 components on the assessment. One is called as a gateway, and then the assessment and the review. The gateway is going to ensure that all the data that you need for the assessment is received. It can come in many different ways if it wants to wait for some time, or it needs to go and look up for different services and everything. So this is basically like the entry point where it collects all the data that is required for the assessment. So and like a preliminary, any validations or something. So once all these things are done, then it's going to call the actual assessment. So when we go to the assessment, it's like a de facto. All the data that is required for the assessment has been received. So having said that, this is the actual complete assessment that we saw in the Excel, right? That we were seeing it up. So, there are again, like when you look at the assessment, there has been some like a tables which changes based on the program year and like the the MSOL calculation and the eligibility, living situation eligibility, like a rules, right? So all the rules from the Excel has been transformed like a decision tables, which is again automated. So down the line, as a maintenance, in this case, like as the program year goes up, we'll be just adding the records for the maintenance of the variable data from the assessment. So that goes up this way. And then coming to the actual assessment, this is like a pre-calculation. The first step is going to look up all the dynamic data that is required based on the program year and anything. So following that, it has been structured in such a way to get the total cost. First, like the total cost calculation will happen. And then subsequently, when it comes to the total resource, which is the assessment is the total cost minus total resource, right? When it comes to the total resource, the first section is again like FSC calculation, which is federal and the provincial. So those calculations has been described here. Then the spouse contribution and the parental contribution. So again, all these things can run in parallel, so that the performance is going to be within like milliseconds or something. So once all the calculations has been done, the final step is it calculates a federal assessment need and the provincial assessment need. Once it is done, it is sent for review. So this review gives it a placeholder for the staff to go and like make any manual override of data or something if they wanted to have a control. So that's where this review comes in picture. So again, it's a pretty simple one-step review, like just for any review or changes. So that's what we have seen here. See all the rules that has from the Excel is it has been like taken into the engine. I can just like quickly go through that. See here, say for example, like the parental income contribution, right? So that is again like it's based on the program year and the DI, the discrete calculation. You can have it up. So all the things, the dynamic data from the calculations will be like a maintenance in the future state. Okay. Say for example, allowable maximum limit. Say for a weekly frequency for the program year, what is a maximum childcare that is possible? What is a maximum alimony support? What is the second resistance allowance? The daycare allowance per thing. All these things are maintained like a rule. So when we go for 2022 to 2023 or 2023 to 24, it's just going to be one record. You are just going to maintain this record. That's what we will be doing it up. And then the actual processes that we walk through has been deployed. This is like a workflow engine so that we were seeing it up. And I'm just going to log into the application now quickly. So this is the program information program information request that we were developing. So I'm just like going to quickly fill in some information for pretty fast to show the calculations are really happening out of it. Okay. Just please bear with my numbers. It may not be accurate. I'm just like randomly filling very fast.
It's all good. This is exciting stuff.
Yeah. I just like randomly give something. Okay. Audio and youth care, I'll say no. And then like grad, let me put some number. I'm just like quickly filling up all the yes, no questions. So that's what I'm doing here. Okay, we have dependents. So let me see like some number over here, just 2010 school, no. And you have custody, like I'm just like income.
So just to confirm, this is just a draft financial application that was done just so that Sumati could practice her calculations. It's not the one that Roop just showed us. So this will get updated potentially next sprint to reflect what Roop showed us earlier today so that they match.
Yeah. So right now it has submitted. So once it is submitted, so you can just go and look in the workflow engine. The calculations has been taken place. You can see here the active instances, so that we submitted now 11.8. So there are some data which is going to give you, maybe my numbers are so bad, it's giving negative. So the federal assessment need and the provincial assessment need is, it's all getting calculated. So there is another value over here, which we did yesterday. So it's going to have some positive values and all. So what we have exactly done at this point of time to just keep going. So we have like given this like a placeholder set. There are some hard coded like, you know, just like the structure, the layout has been done. All we have to do in the subsequent sprint is like really get like couple of the remaining values from the UI and get it working. So right now with this, the default values, some have been set here. Some values comes from the UI, some are from the hard coded values. So with those combination, it is getting calculated. So that's how it works. So the values may not be accurate. So we'll get it refined with the actuals in the next sprint.
Awesome. So just to clarify, did it spit out a number?
Yeah, yes, yes. See this?
All right.
Yeah.
So yeah, it'll be good to test against the old Excel sheet, the data against all the calculations that you've worked on and see if they match in the future.
Yeah.
Thanks so much, Sumati.
So can I just stop for a second and say, Sumati, what you've just shown us is we have taken an SABC full-time application, completed it, and assessed it.
Yep.
Whoop, whoop. That's amazing. So just huge and just really Sumati has kind of done a lot of this work. So we just so appreciate that you have been able to take this extremely complex black box stuff and transition it. It's super exciting. So thank you so much.
Yeah, and also it's just a testament to who, not how. And, you know, we could have had a team of analysts and project leads and all of us trying to figure out how to get this done in advance instead of just starting and getting the experts involved and having Sumati come on board to just get it done. So yeah, thank you so much, Sumati. Really, really appreciate it. And I say that because I've been a part of those brains trying to figure out the how. It's crazy making. Okay, thank you so much. Let's talk to you, Elise, about what some of our goals are for Sprint 12. I'll share my screen again.
Great, thanks. So you can see that we are really picking up steam. There's lots going on. So what's the next sprint going to look like? We're going to continue working on this assessment, which will help us get to, drumroll please, configuring the award, which is pretty exciting. So as we get to that, obviously we need to start getting ready for our notice of assessment, start thinking ahead to confirmation of enrollment. And of course, now we need to start thinking about some of the unhappy paths. What happens if the student has a restriction? So some of those kinds of things. So we're starting to prepare and do some research and gather some information. And of course, looking at all the user stories that we have for those pieces of work. We're also going to take the application that we showed you today and keep the building of it, keep working on that piece. We're also going to be doing a little bit of a regroup with our UX UI team. Now that Andrew has joined the team, just kind of take this opportunity to rethink and do some planning going forward, which is super exciting. There's some stuff which we haven't had a chance to show you everything, and I think that you can see that if we show you everything, your mind just might just get overwhelmed by it all. And so we've got some other smaller pieces that need to be worked on, but are critically important. So some of the location stuff inside the institution, summary views, detail views, different conversations like that. We are also going to, we didn't get as much time as we'd hoped to work on the permanent disability piece this sprint. So we do plan on working on that next sprint, and we've already started that conversation, and Sarah and folks have been super helpful and working with @BC to plan that piece out. So we're looking forward to sharing that with you next time as well. And we haven't had as much of a chance. We kind of skipped over a couple of things today, but as you can see, it's been a busy sprint. So making sure that we have all of our site navigation and all of that for the student account set up. So we'll show you some more of that next in 2 weeks as well.
Yeah, and with permanent disability request, we actually went to the BC Dev Exchange. It was just like a share and talk about our, our challenges and stuff. And they suggested passing some of the low-hanging fruit, so to speak, from the UX designers and analysts to the dev team to see what they came up with, and just make the team a little more cross-functional. So we've actually moved permanent disability from the UI UX team straight to development, because we think that it could be a fairly simple process now that @BC is tackling a lot of the heavy lifting. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah, pretty. So we're hitting our stride, and look forward to sharing lots of more good work in 2 weeks.
Yeah. So unfortunately, we have 10 minutes.
It's okay.
And next Wednesday, for those interested in deep dive.
Yeah. Yeah, so we've got, so thanks Michelle for pulling stuff out of the chat area there. So first one, if the program is there, will the provide program information section? So this is when Roop was showing us the institution, pardon me, the student has selected their institution, which will be from a list of designated institutions. Then they are selecting the programs, and what they're going to get is a pre-sorted list of only the programs at that institution. And then they will get a pre-sorted list of those programs and the offerings for just that program. So that will happen. And the same thing will happen if the institution is needing on a program information request to select the program. They're only selecting from their approved programs, not what another institution may be doing. So yes, we will definitely have that in place. So question about how the system will distinguish between married and common law. I think, Robin, you had captured that as something. I'm not sure. So the system won't do that. We have to, if we need to, we would need to present that option to the student in a different way, which we can absolutely do. Perhaps instead of putting married/common law, we put married as one option, common law as another, if we need to do that. So we'll just need to find out why we would need to do that. Is there something in the policy that needs us to break that up?
There is.
There is.
But,
thank you, Robin.
yeah.
Okay, so we'll need to break that up. Okay, so we can change that, because yeah, the system can't differentiate. So we just need to present it to students in a different way. Thank you. Good catch. Will the school have the ability to push this back to the student? So this is about the program information request. And this is where student said, my program's not listed, but actually it is. And so this is where we'll need to think about how to do this, because option 1, institution simply denies the request and sends it back to the student, or they may select for the student. I think you meant this, and go from there. So will they have the ability? Yes. We'll have to figure out how to manage that. And of course, students are going to need to get some kind of a notification that says, hey, the school chose something, and here's what's going through for the assessment. And of course, we need to support some kind of a dialogue in some way, but we don't also want to get into a whole bunch of back and forth. Things like IMM. So this is about personal identity. I was involved in a discussion on the side. So this is where we're gathering personal information at the beginning of the application. And one of the cool things is that Roop showed is this ability to upload a document where you need to, and we can absolutely add that to other questions as need be. That's the nice thing about reusing those pathways, is it's built so if we need to add it to a question about citizenship, for example, we can absolutely do that. The other thing, of course, is that for the personal information, students are providing that information. And then on subsequent applications, they're confirming that. So if they've already uploaded a document, they don't need to do that again. Absolutely. That's part of our goal, is to try to reduce those kind of unnecessary duplications for them and for us, because presumably we've already reviewed it as well. Does that answer that question? Just want to make sure that. Okay. Interested in whether the same document will be, so I think that's the same conversation. Ideally, again, we're working on the principle that we reuse. So if the student has, for example, the student has told us their story about their estrangement from the parents, they don't need to tell us in the next application. That story has already been told and we've captured it and we're okay with that. So we won't require that the next time around. For out-of-province institutions, we need to review the online programs. So this is a conversation, and I think the next one is the same thing about the Code E. And I was kind of getting into a bit of the online discussion. So our goal is, as much as possible, to automate all of these processes. So we have the questions that we think we need to ask, and the goal is not to require any kind of a separate form. If there is something that the institution would need to provide us with, we could add that upload document area again if there needs to be that. We'd have to identify what those are, pardon me. So we can certainly work with you, Phil, if there's any areas that we're missing at this point. And I'm sure there's lots of rules that we haven't captured yet, because at this point we're focusing on just building that foundation, and then we'll add that next level of additional validations.
That's great. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. For some reason, my system's really slow, so I'm not seeing any of the, I can see that someone's posting something, but I don't know if it's more just thumbs up or more questions. So I'll come back to it as soon as we can see it. So I think that deals with out of province, that deals with CODIs, online, on site, let the system validate. So again, the system can validate your answer. It can't validate whether or not your answer is true. So that's where we need to have a conversation about that quality assurance. And this is where I've talked about the idea that we're going to talk about how big of a difference this system is going to mean for our work and what we're doing, because no longer are we going to be managing data. We'll actually be deciding, okay, they've told us, they've also signed and acknowledged that everything is true. So now we're doing what I would call quality assurance activities, and maybe there's some kind of a follow-up to say, hey, you answered this, you said it was true, but we don't have sufficient information. So looking at different kinds of pieces there. Hopefully we modernize the distance ed policy this year, so we don't need to worry. Yes, certainly our distance ed policy is definitely in transition right now. So we'll have to look at how that continues to evolve. For now, we will be building to the current policy, which means that institutions within British Columbia can deliver online, and the out of province are the ones that have some more restrictions on that. But of course, we'll make sure to build a system to allow for that to change over time, because I anticipate that policy will continue to evolve in the next little while. You made a declaration that the continued Yes, that's a really good point. So what, and we can go into a little bit more detail next Wednesday, but at the end of the personal information section on the application, the information is all there, and essentially we've asked the student to confirm that that information is still true. So if their estrangement, let's hope their estrangement perhaps has changed, that situation has changed, then they're absolutely able to edit that information and then move forward. But if they don't edit it and they confirm, then they are declaring that that situation is still true. So we have made sure that there's an opportunity to change that. Phil, you have your hand up. Did you want to comment on something before I get too far past? Because I'm guessing it's about Cody's or online or something.
You guessed correctly. So yeah, it's about sort of that everyone's kind of comments on the online on-site part. So you had mentioned that we are going to be building the system as to our current policy. And so my sort of comment was if the online on-site is captured at the program level. And so if we capture it at the program level and not at the offering level, then it becomes a process where ministry eyes we have to evaluate it to make sure that it covers sort of one of those three sections of our policy, whether, you know, those three criteria for online policy. But if we capture at the offerings level, there could be a very simple validation in the system that basically says, well, if you're telling me the offering is between these days and these days, and yes, it's offered on site and online, then it kind of already covers that first, which the majority of institutions fall into that category. It would fall into that first criteria. And so if we build it that way, it's a very easy validation, and then we don't have to have ministry eyes. And then if it's at the if we have it at the offering level as well, we can also say, well, we can ask them if they click the online blended, then ask them, does it fall within one of these three criteria? And put those three criteria from our policy word for word. And if they do the first one, then it's validated across the offering, and then it's great, it can go right through. But if it's on the next two, which is very rare, we then can have more capacity. We have more capacity to have ministry eyes on it. And then we can have, it's definitely more of a quality part rather than having to deal with it quantitatively.
Great. Well, let's take a closer look at that then, because I do know that we absolutely do plan on capturing online at the program level and at the offering level and making sure that they match up. So maybe we could do a quick dive into it and make sure that we've captured it as best as possible. So let's do that.
Sure.
Sounds
Sure.
good.
And yeah, you can include when we have that conversation, that dive, we can add Pam as well as Stuart Timewell as well, because he's working on that attribute as part of the program.
Sounds good.
Project.
Yeah, let's schedule that. Okay. PDF download of the application. Is this asking, will there be an ability to download the application after it's complete or a paper copy?
That question came from you, Sumati.
Oh,
It's like,
Sumati, don't go
when
down
they
the
go
road of
for-
paper copies. Don't.
No, not paper copy, like when they go for the preview option, right? Like before they submit. So is it like possible to get a self-attested downloadable, PDF kind of a thing, not paper?
Yeah, so I think we absolutely do students want to have the ability to print off what they applied for, have a record of it. Sure, we can talk about that for sure after they've filled it out. Whether or not that's part of the MVP, that's something we'll have to talk about, but for sure. Yep. And I definitely anticipate that we'll need to have more conversations about that. What do they need to be able to print off and how, and whether that's in addition to using just some kind of, I'm going to be the server technology. I'm not sure if that's the right words, but by virtue of the URL, I think you can print sometimes. I don't know all the technical stuff, but we'll have to talk about that for sure.
Okay.
So the last one was suggestion, add an option for all for the question about number of weeks the spouse is in full-time study. Okay, thank you for that suggestion. We can look at that. I also had a couple of other suggestions which will capture coming from Neve's not able to be here today, but there was also the idea of adding the year of the program to the offering. We've intentionally tried to move away from what year are you in, because students just, that's kind of an old way of thinking about things. Students are taking courses and doing all kinds of different things, and it depends on whether they're part-time or full-time and three-quarter time and all that. But that's something that is a potential idea, as well as adding the PEN, the personal education number, is another one that was brought to my suggestion. I said, let's bring it here, adding that as a field on the student account. So that personal information. And then the other one is around the SIP field. Apparently some of the technical stuff, institutions, they write in the SIP, but they just write in 4 numbers, and the system itself adds where the decimal goes. So that's something we'll have to think about. But yeah, thank you. I thought let's capture them there. I feel like there's some other questions that we might have missed, but we are very close to the end of our time. So just wonder if there's anything urgent, or if perhaps we could take a look at these questions and bring them up for our business discussion next Wednesday, just to answer. I think most of them we can bring forward. So, but if there's anything burning or urgent, please let me know. I think we've covered off most things.
There's another question I haven't captured yet, Elise.
Okay.
I'll just put it in right now. It's will we be removing the policy around program year +1 question mark?
That's a good question. That
I
is
can
not
speak
a
to
mock
that.
question.
I could probably speak to that a little
Sure.
bit. So that's a federal policy, which currently we don't actually operationalize outside of using yearly funding maximums as well as scholastic standing. So no, Pam, we will not be building business rules into the system that will put a hard stop on that. We'll continue to sort of restrict it, for lack of a better word, using those other policies, like I mentioned, the funding limits, the and the scholastic standing. Does that answer?
Yes.
I think, Pam, you said yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome. Anything else,
Okay.
guys? We went full to time this week. Good job. Okay, I'm sure lots of swirling around. We showed you a lot today, and we didn't get to everything, so maybe we can carry those other things forward to next week, but we might have a lot to show you next week too. We'll see. All right, thanks very much. We'll see you in 2 weeks.
Thanks, everybody.